So this is Betty White. She and the majority of the red cows that are out here came from my brother. I purchased them. He was selling all of his non-black hided cattle off, so I purchased a good group of cows. And then I also raised a number of these cows as well. And all the black yearlings are future replacement heifers. I raised them from some cows I have south of Fowler down on Highway 10. So I have some mixed genetics and mixed bloodlines, but it works for me because they do well in this arid climate we live in. And on Highway 10, it's much drier and more rugged where I have cattle on my family's ranch. And so that's the type of cattle I need down here. So small, framed, thrifty. They can't be the big, heavy cows that you can have in areas like the Midwest and Nebraska. So these are a little bit more dry country and rugged. And then my bulls typically are Red Angus. That's Capone. Here comes Piggy. Hi, Pigwigs. And they just are curious. Cattle are very curious animals. When I'm building fence, they come and watch me build fence. And I don't know if they're critiquing me or just going, oh shoot, now we can't crawl out. I don't know. So this particular property I call the Doppler Ranch. It's because of the Doppler radar ball you can see over there. When you're watching the news and you see the radar ball that they spin the Doppler around on the weather report, that's actually in my pasture. So that's the reason I call this the Doppler Ranch. I also have a place on Highway 10, which is south of Fowler, and we call that JoJo's Ranchito. My brother and his boys and wife named it because it's not a real big pasture. I just have about 23 cows down there. That would be the second ranch. And then the place over by Pueblo we call Beagle because it's Eagle Ranch and Bergman Road. So my boyfriend named it for us. And then my folks' ranch is the Blue Hills Ranch on Highway 10 east of Walsenburg. And I run some cows on that place as well. So when we have cattle on mom and dad's, it's a family effort. My brother, my parents, myself, my sister-in-law, we all have cattle out there. So we all work together and make decisions together. I grew up in Calhan, which is east of Colorado Springs. My folks lived there until I was a senior in high school, and they had sold that ranch. I finished high school and I've been tied to this region, southern Colorado, since then. My folks were first-generation ranchers, and in 2014, Western Horseman actually wrote an article about them called Started from Scratch because they were so unusual that they managed to start from scratch. They started out on 60 acres in a single-wide trailer house and bought and sold real estate, ranch properties. They both had jobs off the ranch. My father was a farrier, so a horseshoer. My mom worked at the post office. And eventually they were able to acquire the ranch that they have on Highway 10 now and pay it off. I got back into it in 2012. I took a break during college and then while I was working a few years after college and really kind of missed the cattle. And my dad encouraged me to buy some cows and get back into the cattle business. So here I am. Right now I have about 100 head of cows between the places that I run on. I sell real estate for a living, but the ranch is truly where my passion is. So each ranch is a little bit different scenario. This particular ranch, the Doppler Ranch, I've cross-fenced. You can see this fence right here, put that in a couple years ago. I fenced it into multiple pastures. I just acquired a state section or just gained the lease of the state section last fall. So I'm going to cross-fence that into 2 pastures as well. So then I'll have a 6-pasture rotation to take these cows through. I'll just continuously change that throughout the year. I did put grassland CRP in on some of this pasture, so I follow their prescriptive grazing, which is great because it helps me with guidelines on this is what they suggest, but most of the time it just coincides with where you need to be and where you need to rotate your pastures. I added a well on the north side of the ranch. There's a pasture across the county road, and so that was an improvement I did a few years ago, was to drill a new well and put it on solar. And the well I have to manage these pastures over here is also set up on solar and has pipelines that I used in the EQIP program to continue pipelines onto more tanks and then add in the fence lines. So once I wrapped up that EQIP program, that's when we rolled into grassland CRP. So I take advantage of a lot of those programs that the USDA offers, and then I work with them to make sure I follow their guidelines on grazing. Also, when we put the fences in, they're wildlife friendly. So there are only 3 strands. The antelope can go under, the deer can go over. The tanks have bird ladders. We try to do everything we can to make sure the wildlife is accommodated and the cows are still contained inside good fences. And it just makes me proud to be able to try and do things up to the best standards I can. So we live in a high desert, and drought is a major thing here. Droughts come in 20 and 30-year cycles. And so we just try to figure out ways to manage the properties so that we don't overgraze them. And if we're fortunate enough, on the real dry years, we won't have to sell out the herds. So you just try to conserve grass and make sure that you rotate it enough that you still have some grass left behind that you can use in the future if you're a little short on rain. That's the biggest goal. I just don't want to turn it into a dirt lot. I want to make sure the cows are always healthy and fleshy. I love chubby cattle, so it makes me proud to have healthy, fat cattle everywhere who are very content. And I just try to improve my knowledge all the time and expand what I'm doing with the operation by just learning more. And I go to classes, I go to seminars, and just what I was taught from my family when I was young. It's kind of neat that I'm only the 2nd generation, and now my brother's boys will be the 3rd generation for our family. But it's pretty unusual that my parents did it from scratch, and I'm doing the same thing. So being a woman in ranching means a lot to me. With my father teaching me everything he knew about ranching and my mom helping teach me about helping out at the ranch and doing different things. My mom's a wonderful cook. She did everything from scratch. Even her brownies are made from scratch. She won't use a box mix. She's like the epitome of a hearty ranch wife. But I always had a passion for what Dad did. So that's where I learned to rope. I paid for a lot of my college scholarships on roping, as well as academics. And I've always just been proud that my father always promoted each of us kids the same way. I ranch because I absolutely have a passion for it. My goal for my ranches is to take a piece of property and improve it, put in better water, put in better fences, do a better job of managing the grasses, providing a great environment for my livestock. Being a woman in the ranch world is really exciting, but to me it's just being a person in agriculture and contributing.